Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Maria Garcia. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Tonight we're talking about jobs in the borderland. The city of El Paso has been trying for years to incite good-paying companies to either expand or move here. Tonight we'll talk about the challenges to that, the success stories, what's working, what's lacking. Just this week we learned of Fred Loya expanding in El Paso thanks to financial incentives approved by both the city and the county. With the approval, Fred Loya Insurance says it will create 562 new jobs in El Paso. The positions include claim support and adjusters. According to the insurance company, the average starting salary will be about $30,000. The city expects Fred Loya's expansion to have a local economic impact of more than $29 million. Joining us tonight, Mayor Oscar Leeser and the city's Economic Development Managing Director, Cary Westin. You can email us your comments and questions now to ABC7Extra at KVIA.com. Call us at 915-496-1775 or tweet me at MariaGABC7. Before we get to the discussion, let's get a recap of why Fred Loya chose to expand in the company's hometown.
Xtra flight, a spokeswoman from Fred Loya explained the company's reasoning.
I think the Loyas really want to invest in our community. They have other options, but you know, it's close to their heart.
And city leaders are grateful for that decision.
I'm very excited that they decided to continue to invest and continue to trust the city of El Paso to expand their business. 562 families are going to have the opportunity to bring food to their table, be able to provide more for their children, for their education.
Which will then flow back into the city.
That person that Fred Loya employs will go out and buy a TV, buy a home, buy food, buy whatever they're going to buy and invest within our community. So that dollar continues to circulate. So that's so important.
The economic impact is projected at more than $29 million in wages and benefits.
We thank them for the confidence and the trust and continue to help them see that they can expand within our community.
All right, that was Evan Folan reporting. And joining us now are Mayor Oscar Leeser and Cary Westin, the city's Economic Development Managing Director. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Of course. So $29 million economic impact for El Paso. You know, this is the kind of stuff that changes people's lives, essentially.
Well, it does, and that's one of the things that we've been trying to do is to have companies that have trusted El Paso to continue to invest and expand, and create jobs so they can continue to, like I said in the interview, to buy a home and be able to send their kids to school. So it's very important, and one of the things that you see, it's a $29 million economic boost to our community, and you're only talking about $2,800 in incentives per month, and then you go over the 8 years, it comes out to about $270,000, but it's a $2,800 investment to the taxpayers, and that's incredible if you think about it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do this, if they were to go somewhere else, not only we wouldn't be able to give them the incentives, but there wouldn't be any incentives to give, and there wouldn't be any money to circulate within the community. So it's so important to continue to do that, and we've been able to either expand or create almost 10,000 jobs in the last 24 months.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I can't imagine what a shame that would be, sort of this company that started in El Paso, this local man moving or expanding somewhere else, you know, that would be sort of such a loss. So what a refreshing narrative that he's staying in El Paso.
I think one of their senior executives put it best. He said, we want to build in the city that built us. And so, you know, Fred Loya really had an opportunity to go anywhere they wanted to in the country. They have agencies all over the country. They chose El Paso. Mm-hmm. They recognize the talent of our bilingual workforce. Mm-hmm. They've been very successful here, and so it's a great opportunity for El Pasoans.
Cary, will you walk us a little bit through the process of these incentive deals? What criteria do companies have to meet to be considered for financial incentives from the city?
Sure. So this falls under our Chapter 380 incentive policy, and so we look at capital investment and we look at job creation, and then we do have a requirement that the jobs in aggregate meet our median county wage or higher. Our median county wage is at $12.70.
Mm-hmm. Up 22 cents in the last couple of months, and mm-hmm. that's important. 22 cents is quite a bit, and we keep continuing to grow on that. So the last report we got was just recently, it went up 22 cents.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of wages, you know, jobs are obviously better than no jobs, but it's not really easy to live off of $30,000 a year, especially if you're the head of a household. So are we celebrating jobs that potentially keep our wages stagnant?
Well, let me explain that no job is almost impossible to survive on, so unemployment. Minimum wage is even tougher when you're talking about that. So what we're doing is we're creating an opportunity for them to have a job. And a lot of the companies we're talking about today, Prudential, Schwab, Schneider Electric, these companies are giving their team members, and ADP, their team members that come in and they help them get a college degree, get them to continue to grow within their business. So they may start at 30, but they move rapidly as they continue to grow within the company. And if we had done this 20 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but we've not been able to have these jobs. Unemployment rate 3 years ago was over 9%. Today, just within the city, it's 4.3. That's incredible. So now we're creating opportunities for people to be able to grow within a company, but also be able to, and that's why they come here, because of the people of El Paso. So they want to make sure that they have an education and continue to grow within their company. So that's a great opportunity.
But, anyone who employs someone knows that the salary isn't the only thing that you pay out to an employee. I mean, there are benefits, and when you quantify that equals a lot more than the salary.
It does, and I think you have to look at it also in a broader context. We're talking about $30,000 in jobs over the aggregate. So if you look at Fred Loya and what they've done with this expansion, 270 of these jobs actually are closer to $40,000 a year, and 30 of the positions are at $55,000. So they're doing a number of things. They're creating opportunities for different entry points within the workforce, within that particular company, entry-level employees, mid-level employees, and then management. So they're allowing for that upward mobility, creating more demand within the sector and more competition for skills development. So we really look at this as being a good thing for the community. The other thing that I'll mention is recently the Brookings Institute put out a report in February of 2016 called the Brookings Metro Monitor. And it looked at the top 100 metropolitan areas across the country. El Paso ranked in the most recent report in the top 25 in the country in wage growth. We've had 11.7% wage growth. So
Unemployment is down.
Unemployment's down, as the mayor mentioned, and then as the mayor also mentioned, our median county wage has grown. So we're really on a good trajectory and a good path of growth.
A story in the Times this week referenced an LA-based garment manufacturer who moved his factory to El Paso thinking that there would be sort of troves of trained garment workers, but he's found that's not the case at all. Isn't that a good thing, though, that El Paso is not a place that people are thinking, hey, let's move there for cheap labor? Because essentially, he was moving from LA to escape the rising minimum wage, and so is that really a reason why we want companies to come? In the case of this garment manufacturer, because they want to pay people less.
Unemployment, really, they said that full employment's right around 5%. We're at 4.3. So we really have moved the needle when it comes to unemployment. But when we go talk to companies, and Colonel Westin will tell you this, that when we go talk to companies, we're not looking for jobs. We can get jobs. We can get companies that create jobs. We want a future for our citizens. And if you just want to create a job with no future and no opportunity to move up, we're not the right city. And I think you're starting to see that.
Right.
You're seeing competition for higher wages. The garment industry's changed quite a bit too. I mean, we those jobs largely transitioned in the late 90s. A lot of the people that were in those jobs transitioned into other industries. So I think part of it's that, and then the competition for some of the higher paying jobs.
The Borderplex Alliance focuses on 6 main industries, including defense and homeland security, life sciences, clean technology. But these all require a high-skilled, educated workforce. And El Paso is lacking on that. El Paso is lacking on a vast pool of skilled workers.
Well, we just got back from Austin. We had the opportunity to meet with the governor, lieutenant governor, and Mr. Paredes, who is head of the higher education in the state of Texas, and we met with him. And you know, the thing is that they're working with UTEP and they're working with community college to make sure that we have the right curriculum as the community starts coming up. When you talk about we want to graduate the right talent, the right people, you start at pre-K, and it's really important. Where do you start? And I think people used to think that what are we graduating? What do we have? Well, let's make sure that the skill force that we're graduating, we have proper jobs for. So when do we start? We start very early, and that's one of the things we're starting to transition to. And you know, it's right now they have a new program that's called 60-30. 60% of the students that start college to graduate by the year 2030, and that's a program that's going to become a very important program in the state of Texas.
But you know, it's kind of the chicken or the egg, right? Because we do have people, thousands of graduates from UTEP every year. Many of them, though, in some of these industries have to leave the city because there are not enough jobs for them, for a lot of them to stay. But those jobs aren't coming because those very people are leaving, right? Because the people who are skilled, who can do those jobs, aren't staying in El Paso.
That goes back to the answer I just gave. We got to have a curriculum to make sure that as they graduate, that it meets the workforce, the requirement for the workforce. So understand what we are graduating, what we're creating, and make sure that those jobs are available as they come up through the school. So it's been very important to have the right curriculum for the type of degrees that we're creating in El Paso. And community college, Dr. Sadata and Dr. Nalisha has worked really close with us to make sure that becomes a reality.
Retaining talent's also, you know, it's so important, and I think another aspect of this, you have to look at what's happening in the shifting of the demographics nationally. So another part of job retention and retaining the talent here, if you see what's happening, the baby boomers are leaving the workforce at an alarming rate. Over the next 7 years, over 50% of the workforce will fall in the millennial categories, that younger workforce that's between 18 and 34. And so one of the things that El Paso has been doing is been putting a lot of investment in the community to enhance our overall quality of place. You look at all the different things that are rolling out in the quality of life bond projects, just different amenities. We've got developers in our community that are doing fantastic work on bringing in new to market retailers that we haven't had here before, and we're seeing more and more of that. All of those kinds of amenities are important to a younger workforce because where the baby boomers typically went to where the jobs were as the first priority, the millennials are going to gravitate towards the quality of place as the first priority, and the job becomes the second priority. So you have to do a lot of these things. It's not really a linear discussion.
Right.
All of these different faceted approaches to being able to create jobs and have an improving economy is we have to tackle it,
Right.
everything at the same time.
And there is a ton of research that shows, you know, millennials do exactly what you just said. I mean, that's why you have cities like Portland who don't have a lot of good paying jobs but have troves of young people because they have such a sort of sense of quality of place. Let's go to Greg in Central on the phone. Hi, Greg. What's your comment or your question?
How can we have more jobs in El Paso if we don't have the flights that come into El Paso or leave El Paso?
You know, and that's a great question, and that's been one of our priorities. And we have Allegiant Air that brought a couple flights from El Paso to Las Vegas, El Paso, San Diego, and then Delta also has a new flight that is starting to fly nonstop to Atlanta. So they have 3 now, where they only had 2. And we'll continue the dialogue is continuing with the airlines, and also American Airlines has their overnight service that creates a lot more flights as they bring their regional jets, the CRJ 900s, into El Paso for maintenance overnight, and we've been able to establish that. So they come in and they don't want to leave empty, so that's created more flights. So that's been a big priority for the Borderplex in the city of El Paso. We've been able to move the needle in the last 12 months.
Right. Allegiant Airlines added nonstop to Orlando, Las Vegas, and San Diego from El Paso this year. So like you said, it's sort of not a linear discussion. There's sort of multifaceted approach to economic development.
Well, our airport executive staff's done a great job. It's tougher and tougher for the medium and smaller hubs to get new air service, and so I think Allegiant and the Allegiant announcement actually two announcements that the mayor has mentioned almost back to back is really important. They continue to engage with airline executives. So being able to get that air service in what's really a shrinking market for the smaller hubs speaks to what's happening here in El Paso, and it's really important.
Okay, well, we're going to take our first commercial break. We're going to take your phone calls and emails and tweets when we come back. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. We're talking about jobs in the borderland today. Remember, you can call us at 496-1775. Email us at ABC7Extra@KVIA.com or tweet me at MariaGABC7. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about jobs in El Paso. Let's take your emails and your phone calls and your tweets. This is from Tony. As military downsizes, what does the city look to do to try to keep military folks from moving out?
Yeah, and I think Colonel Westin said it perfectly, that the quality of life, quality of place that we've been creating in El Paso, we can't really do anything on the inside part of Fort Bliss. That's really General Twitty, who's been an incredible partner to the community, is in charge of, but we're in charge of the quality of life, quality of place, so that everything that El Paso's doing has really helped us from when the downsizing and the huge investments, and also, you know, the veterans, that we've created a jobs for our veterans. And one thing in the 380 agreement we've done, that any company that hires 15% veterans, we give them an additional incentive. So we really respect our veterans, and we know that it's a great workforce that is out there. So we've added additional incentives for them.
The other thing that's really important is, as a community, we have to continue to be in a good partnership with Fort Bliss on improving infrastructure. That's going to be always looked at by, if we go through another BRAC round in the BRAC Commission. One of the things I'll point to that we've done recently, we were able to secure a grant through the state, a Defense Economic Adjustment grant, of $2 million that improves the infrastructure at the desalination plant. And so it's doing those kinds of things to improve capacity, which means more water resources, doing things to improve connectivity with our roadways, like we had done during the last BRAC round, and we've been improving that ever since. Those are the kinds of things, coupled with quality of life improvements, that are going to be a big factor in any other Department of Defense adjustments.
Ray tweeting at us, Cary is right. Continuing improving the quality of life in El Paso is paramount in bringing more economic interest into our city. George tweeting at us, how about putting city officials on a 30K job? Would they manage? Well, city reps do make about $30,000 a year.
A little less than that.
A little less than that, yeah, they do. Minor Joe tweeting at us, Mayor Leeser, a businessman, way to go running the city. Now let's increase our public safety up to par. Public safety, what do you think about?
You know, and we have a great police chief, a great fire chief, and El Paso has been the safest city in the country over the last 5 years. The numbers show the last 4 years, and then they kind of changed the numbering, so we did, so we didn't really do the numbers. But really, over the last 5 years, we've been the safest city, over 500,000, and that's incredible. That's a great job, and it's our police, our fire, our sheriff's department, CVP, Border Patrol, all working together and to create a safe environment. And really, when we get elected, our number one responsibility is safety for the citizens.
Let's go to George in the Lower Valley on the phone. Hi, George. What's your comment or your question?
Mayor, how are you going to be able to bring jobs into the city, and we're still fighting the fact of health insurance and those kind of things that people need to have?
Thank you very much. So, George saying, how will we bring jobs to the city when we're still struggling with health insurance? Not sure if he meant health insurance within the city or with private companies.
One of the things we did bring was, you know, companies that are Fortune 500 companies, Prudential, Schwab, Schneider Electric, companies that ADP, and ADP has been an incredible partner. Every time we bring a company, we actually go talk to ADP and show how they invest in Trusted El Paso. These are companies that provide insurance, provide a full package for their new team members and their new family members. And so we'll continue to attract the quality of companies as we continue to increase the quality of life for our citizens.
And the companies that we incentivize have to provide and pay health insurance for their employees as well.
Ray tweeting, what other improvements or quality of life projects are planned for El Paso? Well, there's a whole lot.
I was going to say,
I mean, voters passed a $500 million bond a few years ago.
And one of the things we're doing right now, and it was really important to look at, was the three major signature projects that we needed to move forward. And we looked at that; those were some of the last projects through the end of the bond, which was about a 15-year rollout. And right now, money's the cheapest it's going to be. So we're bringing those forward, and then we're looking at how do we put them into the budget and stay within the ceiling of the 30 cents per 100 and not exceed that. So one of the things we've been making sure that 100% of the citizens of El Paso are required to pay taxes. We want to make sure that not only 5% or 10% can afford it, but 100% of the citizens can afford it if we're asking them to pay for it. So we're actually rolling it out over 15 years, but bringing the big projects forward to be able to maximize them and get a bigger bang for the buck. So right now we've actually purchased the land, or in the midst of purchasing the land, the old Greyhound facility for the Children's Museum. We have the Culture Museum that's going up that we've had plans and actually identified funding for, and then the all-purpose arena that we can bring forward, which is $180 million. 15 years from now, that may only bring you half of what you really voted for. So it's really important that we look at it and again, make sure it's affordable, not to 5% of the citizens, but 100% of the citizens.
So we're ahead of schedule on our quality of life bond projects, our signature projects. We're also bringing forward spray parks in every district.
That should be completed by the end of the year if things go according to
the
plan.
early part of this next year.
That's an ambitious timeline.
And then I think another aspect of our quality of life is we're looking at destination retail opportunities. We were really excited to see that Top Golf has added El Paso to the expansion list. Top Golf, when they go into communities, they create additional development. They've got a very big regional draw. And so we're looking at destination retail opportunities as another means to enhance the overall quality of life.
Mayor, speaking of the three signature quality of life bond projects, last week on ABC-7 Xtra, I know some viewers expressed dismay that the arena, originally when it was presented to the public, it was presented as a 17,000 seat arena, something that we don't have here, so that we could bring bigger acts, bigger concerts, but it's looking now like it could be 12,000 seats.
Yeah, right now the way it's looking, you're right, it's about 12,500, somewhere in that area, and based on the $180 million that was voted by the voters. And that's what I was talking about. If we wait 10, 15 years from now, you're probably going to look at a 7,500 seat arena. Well, that's really, why would you want to build something like that? It will not increase the quality of life. You won't be able to bring any additional venues. So, and we need to look at and see what, right now, interest rates are low enough that, how can we build the best for the bang for our buck.
And Mayor, I know you were not in office when the quality of life bond projects were being evaluated, were being chosen, were being scoped out. But I mean, at the time, it's obvious that you're not going to build an arena in 2-3 years, that it's going to take some time. So I know there's people at home wondering, like, where was the foresight to think, okay, it's probably, let's not tell people it's going to be 17,000 seats, when realistically, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the timeline, it's probably going to be less than that. So I know there are voters who voted for this bond who are looking at a project like an arena and are disappointed that it's going to be significantly smaller than they were told it was going to be.
Yeah, 70% of the voters voted for the arena, and it's important that we bring it forward. Now, $180 million, they didn't have operating costs. O&M was not included in that, so we need to make sure that we can include that into our operating budget as the city continues to grow. So that's been very important, that the major projects don't have operating costs in the quality of life bond of the $473 million. So again, we have to stay within the ceiling. So how do we do that? And we've actually figured out how we can turn around, and you'll see that we will be voting on this on this coming week, where we'll start only being able to spend $1 once as the dollar's being, so we can set it forward and make it part of our budget. and Dr. Sutter and Mr. Gonzalez did an incredible job of turnaround, and it was something that I was real passionate about, and I think you remember you did some interviews on it, that I kept saying we need to account for every dollar. Once we decide that we're going to build something for 10 million, 100 million, 20 million, we need to account for that dollar and not spend it again, even though we're not going to build it for a year or two. Account it into your budget so you don't spend it twice. And when you run a business, that's the only way you could do it, you go out of business. And so they were able to change the way we're doing it, and now we'll be able to build and continue to stay within the budget of the city. So it took me a while, but Dr. Sutter and Mr. Gonzalez did a great job of bringing that forward.
Okay, all right, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. More from Twitter. Henry tweeting at us about PayPal. We'll get to your emails as well on your phone calls. So you're watching ABC-7 Extra. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Let's go to emails and tweets from Henry. Is the city going to jump in and help the city rep woo PayPal as well? I'm assuming he's referring to city rep Peter Schwarzbein, who started a social media campaign to encourage PayPal to come to El Paso. I understand Congressman O'Rourke wrote a letter to the company as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, we also have had Destination El Paso utilize social media as a platform to let PayPal know that we're interested. We're working in conjunction, the city is, with the Borderplex Economic Alliance, and so we have made contact with the executive office. We're just waiting for a response back. But we would love to have PayPal here. It really fits in the kind of industries, this similar business processing for their operations center, very similar to what you'd see with ADP and some of the other companies. And we've got a great location, a great time zone, bilingual workforce. It's very diverse. It's just a good fit, I think, if we can get PayPal interested.
I think what's also really interesting about this is that they're not expanding in Charlotte because of the law there that they find discriminatory, and Congressman O'Rourke wrote them a letter talking about how El Paso has really been a leader in civil rights issues, in tolerance issues and acceptance issues. So it's sort of a unique case with the company and enticing them to El Paso.
And you're right, and our goal is to get in front of them and talk to them and then bring them to El Paso, and all we want is an opportunity to earn their business and show them what El Paso has to offer, and find out what their needs and wants are. And once we can find out what their needs and wants are, then we can work really hard to earn their business.
And Dennis in East Central emailing us, why wouldn't Fred Loya want to expand his company here in El Paso? To fill the same positions elsewhere, they would have to pay $10,000 to $25,000 more per year. Unfortunately, a common practice with national companies with offices here. Shame on them. Is that true? Do some companies pay El Pasoans less for positions that they would pay more in other states or cities?
Well, I think you have to look at we have lower business operating costs here. We're about 30% lower than the national average. I wouldn't speculate that they're paying them less, but our operating costs are lower to do business here. So I think that plays into the decision as well.
And a lot of it's cost of land and cost of investment to be able to build a facility. That's become when they look at it, and that's important to them, the initial investment. But I think their pay around their companies are pretty level when you're talking about the same type of job, some type of low qualifications. The pay is equal.
Lori from the West Side emailing us saying, I believe that Mayor Oscar Leeser is doing good things for the city. I also genuinely believe that most city representatives have good intentions, but it seems like every week I open the newspaper and read about another controversy at City Hall. And it seems like there is a core problem with this government body. Is that the case?
And that's a great question, because you have 8 different representatives, and they all do a great job, but they were elected by their constituents, and they represent 8 different districts, so they have a very strong passion. Is there confrontation? Absolutely. I mean, you're there every Tuesday and you see it, and it's my job to make sure that all their passion comes to what's best for the community. And you hear me say that a lot, that at the end of the day, they all want something, and at the end of the day, how will we make it, how can we afford it, and how can we afford it for the whole city? So it's been very important, but they have great passion. They work very hard, and they care a lot about their city, or they wouldn't be in public office, because they a lot of times they're under the microscope a lot, so they care a lot, and I think sometimes they get a little heated, but that's more of I think that they want to do a good job for the people that put them in office.
But aside from the confrontation or the lively discussions at City Hall, I think Lori might also be referring to some of the issues that have surfaced over the last year, the investigations, the ethics complaints into the city manager, the former City Rep Leah Romero. The Times last week published a story raising questions about City Manager Tommy Gonzalez's relationship with Frisa Nichols. A lot of editorials the Times has done saying that the city's losing focus, really being critical of the city council. And I think there are some people in the community who feel that the city cannot move forward until it deals with these issues some way.
And that's kind of a shame, because we do a lot of great things, and I've said this to you, and I've said to everybody, we do 30 great things at City Council, and we vote on some things that really are huge for the community. The taxpayer never gets to see that, because what is the media reporting? The media is reporting the controversy. The media is reporting when they go at each other. But
we just spent 35 minutes talking about jobs in El Paso. So not all the time.
I know that, but that's really what they're seeing, and it's important. And I always say that very few people watch City Council meetings, so how do they get informed by the media? So I want you to report the news. I want you to report what's going on, and it's really important that we do show a lot of the things, the good things we're doing, and that's what we're doing today, and I thank you for it. But the editorials that are being said about the city, we're working really hard. Why do a lot of people don't want to run for public office? Because people get insulted a lot, and you have to have very thick skin. And someone told me when I was running for office, because I couldn't believe all the insults and everything was going on, they said, you know what, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, the problem is people aren't coming in because they see what's going on. They see the insults. They see how people are being disrespected, and really it's kind of tough. I'll be honest with you. I can handle it because I know who I am, and I work very hard, and I feel very grateful that they gave me the opportunity to represent the city. But it's a shame sometimes to see that the bashing that the city council takes and the mayor takes, or the Mr. Gonzalez. Some of it, yeah, you're right. We earn it. There's no ifs and buts about it. But the continual bashing really has hurt the city, and it costs the city millions and millions of dollars as we go out there to try to promote our community. So I sometimes I wonder if it's in the best interest of our community, and report really the great things that we're doing, the great things that's going on, because you know what, El Paso is really a growing community with a lot to the gain. So sometimes you wonder, they go, well, it's the pay why people don't want to run for office. No, it's the insults, and they know that, and they walk up to me and they go, you're a very successful businessman, you've done a lot of great things, why would you have done that to yourself? Why would you put yourself out there? And the answer I give them is because I care, and I want to make sure that the city continues to move forward.
And I've mentioned this to city representatives before. I mean, you do take a public beating when you're in office. I mean, there is no doubt about it.
That sells media. That sells newspapers. That sells eyeballs,
well,
and that. But because there's a lot of great things we do.
But there are also journalists who care about the city. I mean, who genuinely love the city, who care about the city, and it's not like they're making stuff up or just have a personal agenda to make somebody look bad, or at least not that I personally know. But it's not like people are making this stuff up.
Yeah,
you
but
know
there's
what
some
I mean?
great. That's what I'm saying. But we do 30 great things, and I said that in City Council the other day. We 30 great things, and they blow up at each other. What do you all lead with in the media? The blow up. not the great things we passed. We didn't talk, I didn't see in the news until 3 days later about how we're refinancing and saving $14 million in the refinance of the city budget. But yet, the first thing that started out was Ms. Limon and I having a confrontation. So that's what I'm talking about, and that sells eyeballs. I had someone call me up and they said they're watching the 5 o'clock news, and they said, and at 5 o'clock, watch where City Representative Limon and Mayor Leeser have a confrontation. He goes, I couldn't wait till 6 o'clock. I wanted to see it. So, I mean, it's true, and that's exactly what happens. And we didn't talk about the $14 million that we saved the taxpayers. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the refinancing of the ballpark, which I put on the agenda 2 months ago. That's going to save probably over $7 million. And I hope that's reported, because that's important now that the citizens have the ability and the opportunity to see that.
Speaking of the ballpark, this over the weekend, a couple days ago, former city manager Joyce Wilson submitted the answers to some of the questions that were posed by the ethics investigator Ross Fisher about the financing of the ballpark, saying, that no city rep instructed her to delay for the May 2013 election, but that they only raised concerns, and that the decision to delay was ultimately up to her. I guess the main question here is, then why are there still questions then? Like, why do city reps from that time, every city rep whom I've spoken to at the time, say they never had a conversation with her, they never raised concerns with her about the timing of the ballpark bonds? And how come she doesn't say which city reps raised the concerns, in what setting? Was there a meeting? Was there not a meeting? Was it just sort of a casual reference? Like, these are important questions, because depending on what the answer is, there could be a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. So,
and you're so correct about that. The citizens deserve to know, and it's really important that we get an answer for the city of El Paso, and that's why it's part of the ongoing investigation to answer every question you had. And you had about 10 of them right away, and every one of them was great.
So were you satisfied with her responses, or are you still seeking more answers?
The letter came in at about 5 o'clock on Friday, and I want to sit down with Ms. Firth and kind of go over it and discuss to see what the city will be doing next.
Okay. All right. Mayor, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your accessibility.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I will be there tomorrow.
I know. I told you you'd be there.
You got to keep us accountable too, right? You have to keep the media accountable.
And I appreciate the opportunity you gave us today, because it's really so many great things going on, and for you to give us the time really means a lot to me. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks
thank you for your accessibility, and thank you for coming here on ABC-7 Extra. We hope you found this informative, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.